Amambil woke on her birthday with quiet hope in her heart. She believed the day would be gentle, maybe even joyful. The early sunlight entered her room through soft curtains, and she smiled to herself, thinking of the small family breakfast she expected to share with her husband Kofi and their children, Thandi and Juma. For years she had tried her best to create a peaceful home. She had worked hard, loved hard, and given more than she ever received. Still, she thought this birthday might be different. Maybe they would show her even a little warmth. She took her time getting ready, choosing a simple dress she had always liked. As she looked at herself in the mirror, she tried to ease the tiredness she saw in her eyes. Running a business, managing a home, and raising 2 children had not been easy, but she had done it with all her heart. She hoped today she would feel appreciated. She walked down the stairs with a smile, expecting a surprise or even a simple greeting. But the living room was strangely quiet. There were no balloons, no small notes, no breakfast on the table. Instead, Kofi stood near the couch with a stiff expression. Thandi and Juma were sitting together, their eyes low, not meeting hers. Amma paused for a moment, unsure. She sensed a coldness in the air that did not belong to a birthday morning. She greeted them softly, but no one responded with warmth. Kofi lifted a brown envelope from the table and held it out to her. His voice was flat, without emotion, as he told her to open it. Confused, Amma reached for the envelope. She opened it slowly, her fingers trembling even before she knew why. Inside were divorce papers. For a moment, she did not understand what she was seeing. Her mind refused to accept it. She looked at Kofi, hoping there was a mistake, a misunderstanding, a cruel joke that would soon end. But he did not show any sign of regret. Thandi and Juma still avoided her eyes. Amma felt something cold move through her chest, like ice spreading slowly. Before she could speak, Kofi explained their decision. He said they had talked about it as a family and had agreed that it was time to separate. His words fell heavily, one by one, as if each one was a stone landing on her heart. Amma tried to look at her children, hoping they would say something, anything, to show they did not agree. But they stayed silent. Then came the final blow. Kofi told her that he and the children would also take the mansion, the business she had worked years to build, and everything she had gathered through her hard work. He said it so simply as if it meant nothing. He told her she would need to move out by the end of the day. Amma felt the world tilt. She had built the business from the ground up. She was the one who stayed awake every night, planning and managing. She was the one who saved money, made smart choices, and kept the business alive during hard times. Yet now, on her birthday, everything was being taken from her in a single moment. Her throat tightened, but she held back tears. She stood still, trying to breathe. She asked them why they would do this to her. Kofi shrugged, saying she had become too controlling, too busy, too focused on her work. He said the children agreed that she was never really present, that they wanted a new start without her. His words cut deep. Amma knew she had worked hard, but she had worked for them. Every late night, every effort had been for the family they had built together. Still, they looked at her as if she was a stranger. Thandi finally looked up at her mother. Amma hoped to see love or guilt in her daughter's eyes, but instead she saw discomfort, maybe even annoyance. Juma shifted in his seat, tapping his foot nervously, but he did not defend her. Their silence hurt more than the divorce papers. Amma felt her chest tighten as if her heart was pulling inward, trying to protect itself. She wanted to shout, to ask how they could do this to her on her birthday of all days. But her voice failed. She felt weak, empty, as if something inside her had cracked. She looked around the room, the same room where she had once read stories to her children, where she had planned her business, where she had shared meals and laughter. Now the room felt cold, unfamiliar, almost hostile. She realized that she had been living with people who no longer valued her presence. Kofi handed her a small folder with documents she needed to sign. He spoke as if discussing business, not breaking a family apart. The lack of emotion in his voice made everything worse. Amma took the folder with shaking hands. She sat slowly on the edge of the couch, trying to steady her breath. She read the papers, though her vision blurred. Every word felt like another betrayal. She felt a wave of weakness wash over her. She placed her hand on the table to steady herself. Her birthday, which she had hoped would bring even a small moment of love, had instead brought the most painful moment of her life. She tried to speak again, but her voice broke. Amma placed the documents down gently, unsure whether her hands were trembling from fear, sadness, or disbelief. She stood up slowly as if all her energy had been drained. She forced herself to breathe. She knew that crying in front of them would only deepen her humiliation. So she held her tears inside, even as her heart ached. She looked at her children one more time. She hoped they would come running to her, hug her, tell her they did not mean it. But they kept their distance. They did not speak. They did not move. Amma realized then that whatever love had once lived in this household had long disappeared. She had just been the last to see it. With quiet dignity, she turned and walked toward the door. She did not know where she would go, what she would do, or how she would survive without her home or business. But she knew she had to keep moving. Her life had changed completely, painfully, but she refused to collapse in front of the people who had broken her heart. When the door closed behind her, Amma felt a single tear fall. It was her birthday, but instead of receiving a celebration, she had been given a heartbreak that would follow her for a long time. Still, somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered that this was not the end of her story. And she walked forward, holding on to that tiny spark of hope, because it was all she had left. Amma stood at the doorway for a long moment, her breath shaking as she tried to understand what had just happened to her. The house behind her, a place she had once filled with laughter, warm meals and late-night prayers, no longer felt like home. It felt like a cold shell, a place where love had died quietly without her noticing. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, even though she hadn't cried yet. Her tears were trapped inside her, heavy but unwilling to fall. She went upstairs slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. She felt as if she were walking through a dream she could not wake from. She opened her bedroom door and looked at the space she had shared with Kofi for years. The bed was neatly made, her clothes still hung in the wardrobe, and her perfume bottles were lined neatly on the dresser. It all looked the same, but everything felt different. She felt like a visitor in her own room. Amma took a deep breath and reminded herself she needed to pack. She moved like a tired shadow, picking up small things she wanted to keep. A few clothes, her old notebook, a photo of her late mother, and a small carved wooden box she had owned since childhood. She didn't have the strength to take much more. She didn't even care about the expensive jewelry she had collected over the years. None of it mattered now. What she needed was peace, even if it was only a small piece of it. As she folded her clothes, memories rushed into her mind without warning. She remembered the nights she stayed awake working on business plans, while Kofi slept peacefully. She remembered selling her own family land to help expand the company. She remembered cheering for Thandi during school plays, and helping Juma with his homework until midnight. Every sacrifice she made replayed in her mind like scenes from an old film. And now, those she had worked hardest for had turned their backs on her. Her heart ached at the thought that her own children had agreed to this betrayal. She tried to understand why. Had she been too busy? Too strict? Too focused on the business? She thought she had been doing everything for their future. She thought she had been building something for all of them. But they had seen her efforts as something else, something they could take advantage of. Amma sat on the edge of the bed for a moment, holding the small wooden box tightly. She remembered her mother telling her that life sometimes breaks you to make you stronger. She whispered those words to herself now, hoping they would give her even a little comfort. But today the words felt heavy and distant. Her strength was buried under shock. When she finally zipped up her small bag, the room seemed to grow colder. She knew she had to walk out before she lost her courage. She picked up the bag, took one last look around the room that had once held so many dreams, and walked out. As she reached the bottom of the stairs, she saw Kofi in the kitchen, drinking tea as if nothing had happened. Thandi and Juma were in the living room, scrolling on their phones. They did not look at her. She felt invisible. She wanted to cry, to scream, to ask why they hated her enough to do this on her birthday. But she stayed silent. She refused to let them see her break. Amma opened the front door and stepped outside. The air felt different, cold and sharp, like it was reminding her that the world outside was not always kind. She walked to the gate with slow steps, each one reminding her that she was leaving behind everything she had built with her own hands. She did not look back. When she reached the road, she stopped for a moment. Her mind felt foggy, her heart heavy. She tried to breathe deeply, but her breaths came out shaky and uneven. She told herself she needed to move forward. Standing there would not change anything. No one was coming to stop her. No one was going to run after her, apologizing for the pain they had caused. She was alone in this moment. As she walked down the road, memories followed her closely, like stubborn shadows. She remembered the early morning market trips she made with Kofi when they first started their business. They used to dream together, plan together, laugh together. She remembered the first time they bought the mansion. She had cried tears of joy that day, believing they had truly made it. Now it felt like another lifetime. Amma reached the main street, where cars passed by and people went about their daily routines. No one knew that her world had just collapsed. She felt strangely invisible among the crowd. It was almost peaceful in a strange way. Painful but peaceful. She walked slowly, unsure of where she would go. She did not have a plan yet. All she had was a small bag and a heart full of hurt. She found a quiet bench under a jacaranda tree. Purple petals had fallen all around it, creating a soft carpet of color. Amma sat down and let out a long, trembling breath. For the first time since the morning, a tear escaped from her eye and rolled down her cheek. She wiped it quickly. Another tear followed, then another, until she finally gave in and allowed herself to cry softly, quietly, without holding back. As she cried, she began to understand something painful but important. The betrayal had not happened suddenly. It had been planned. She replayed recent weeks in her mind, the whispered conversations she had walked in on, the strange glances between Kofi and the children, the way they had begun excluding her from family discussions. At the time she had brushed it off, thinking she was overthinking. But now it all made sense. They had been preparing for this, planning it carefully, waiting for the right moment. And they had chosen her birthday, a day she associated with love and family, to tear her life apart. The thought made her chest tighten. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stop the shaking. Betrayal was painful, but planned betrayal was a different kind of wound. It went deeper, cutting into places she didn't know could hurt. But even as she cried, another feeling slowly began to rise from somewhere deep inside her. It was small at first, almost too quiet to hear. But it grew slowly, like a spark hidden under ashes. It was the beginning of strength, tiny, fragile, but present. Amma wiped her tears and looked up at the sky. She whispered softly to herself that she would survive this. She had survived many things before. She would survive this too. She would rebuild even if she did not yet know how. She stood up slowly, her legs still shaky but her spirit trying to find balance. She picked up her bag and took a deep breath. She did not know where her path would lead next, but she knew she could not stay sitting under the tree forever. She took one step forward, then another, each one carrying the weight of her past and the faint hope of her future. Her heart still hurt deeply, but she walked anyway. She moved forward because she had to. She moved forward because staying in the past would only break her more. She did not look back. Amma arrived at the small village late in the afternoon, tired and carrying only the little bag she had packed. The sun was starting to lower behind the hills, painting the sky with soft orange colors. She stood at the edge of the village road, feeling small and uncertain. She had left behind a life that had broken her, and she had no idea what the future would hold. All she knew was that she needed a place to breathe, a place where her heart could rest for even a moment. Her cousin Zuri lived in a simple clay brick house near the center of the village. Amma hesitated before knocking on the door. She wondered if she looked too tired, too weak, too lost. But she reminded herself that she had come here because she needed safety. She needed family. She raised her hand and knocked softly. Zuri opened the door almost immediately, and her eyes widened with surprise. She quickly stepped forward and hugged Amma tightly. Amma felt warmth rush through her chest, the kind of warmth she had not felt in a long time. Zuri did not ask questions at first. She simply welcomed her inside and offered her a chair and a cup of warm tea. Amma held the cup with shaking hands, grateful for the simple kindness. After a while, Zuri sat next to her and asked gently what had happened. Amma explained everything slowly, her voice breaking as she spoke about the divorce papers, the betrayal, and how she had been forced out of her own home. Zuri listened without interrupting, her face full of concern and sadness. When Amma finished, Zuri took her hand and told her she had made the right choice by coming. She told Amma she was safe now. Amma slept in a small guest room that night. The bed was simple, with a thin blanket and a pillow that smelled of clean cotton. Yet she felt more peace lying on that simple bed than she had felt in the mansion she once owned. She fell asleep listening to the quiet sounds of the village, the distant goats, the wind moving through the grass, and a few soft voices in nearby houses. It was a different world, but it was gentle. The next morning, Amma woke up to the smell of fresh porridge. Zuri called her to the kitchen and they ate together. Amma still felt heavy inside, but the warmth of the room and Zuri's soft voice made her feel a little lighter. After breakfast, they walked through the village so Amma could see the place she would be living for a while. The village was small but full of life. Children ran around laughing. Women carried baskets of vegetables from the fields. Old men sat under a large tree talking quietly. Several people recognized Amma from years ago and greeted her warmly. She was surprised to see so many familiar faces. She had forgotten how many people she had known in her early years before life became busy and complicated. One of the elders, Baba Tembo, approached her with slow, steady steps. He had been a respected voice in the village for as long as Amma could remember. He smiled and took her hand gently as if welcoming back a long-lost family member. He told her he had heard she was going through a difficult time and encouraged her to come speak with him whenever she needed wisdom. His words were simple but they touched her deeply. Over the next few days, Amma spent time with old friends she had not seen in years. Some were her childhood companions. Others were women she had once worked with during community projects. They welcomed her as though no time had passed. Their presence reminded her of who she used to be before life became heavy, someone hopeful, someone kind, someone strong. Amma also found comfort in the daily rhythm of village life. Every morning she helped Zuri fetch water from the well. They walked along the path together, talking softly about life, memories, and small things that brought laughter. Amma had forgotten what laughter sounded like coming from her own mouth. Now, slowly it began to return. In the afternoons, Amma sometimes sat with the elders under the large baobab tree. They told stories about the past, stories about endurance, stories about heartache and healing. Listening to them made Amma feel less alone. She realized that pain was something everyone experienced, and healing was something everyone learned slowly. One evening as the sun set behind the hills, Amma sat outside Zuri's house watching the sky turn purple. She felt a strange calmness settling inside her. It did not erase her pain, but it allowed her to breathe again. She thought about everything she had lost, her home, her business, her family. But she also thought about what she had found: kindness, support, and a chance to start again. Zuri joined her outside and asked how she was feeling. Amma hesitated, searching for the right words. She told Zuri that she still felt broken, but she no longer felt alone. Zuri smiled and told her that healing did not happen all at once. It happened slowly, like water filling a dry well. In the following days, Amma began helping around the village. She assisted some of the women in organizing their small market stalls. She gave simple advice about pricing and selling, using the knowledge she had gathered from years of running her business. At first, she offered the advice casually, but soon people began asking for her help directly. They trusted her. They respected her experience. Amma was surprised by how natural it felt to help others. It reminded her of the early days of her business, before it became complicated and stressful. She felt a spark inside her, a small but clear reminder of her own skills and purpose. One afternoon, a group of young women gathered around her, asking if she could teach them about saving money, planning small businesses, and improving their daily income. Amma hesitated for a moment. She still felt wounded, unsure of her own strength. But the hope in their eyes made her heart soften. She agreed. They met under the shade of the baobab tree. Amma spoke in simple words, sharing what she knew. The women listened carefully, taking notes and asking questions. Amma felt something shift inside her. She felt useful again. She felt seen. She felt alive. As days passed, more people came to her for guidance. Amma realized she was slowly building something new, a sense of purpose that did not depend on wealth or mansions or large companies. It was a simple purpose, rooted in community and shared growth. In the quiet moments of the night, Amma thought about her past life. She no longer felt the same sharp pain she had felt on her birthday. The wound was still there, but it was healing. The village, her cousin, her friends, and the elders had given her something she desperately needed: support, acceptance, and a place to rebuild her spirit. She understood now that she still had strength even when she felt weak. She still had value even when others tried to take everything from her. She still had purpose, even when her world had fallen apart. And for the first time in a long time, Amma started to believe that her story was far from over. Amma woke before sunrise most days, the soft sound of birds filling the quiet air of the village. Her life had become simple, but it was no longer empty. Day by day she found herself growing stronger, almost without noticing it. Helping the local women had started as something small, just a few pieces of advice here and there. But word had spread quickly. Now, women from all corners of the village came to her for guidance. They trusted her, and that alone made Amma feel like she had a place in the world again. Every morning she and Zuri walked together to the village center. Women gathered under the large baobab tree, waiting with notebooks, baskets of produce, and hopeful eyes. Some sold vegetables. Some made handmade soaps. Others wove baskets or crafted simple jewelry. They all wanted to learn how to grow their small businesses. Amma welcomed them with a gentle smile, grateful that her knowledge could help. She kept her teaching simple. She talked about saving a little money each week, planning before buying supplies, and treating customers with kindness. She explained how to keep track of earnings and how to avoid spending everything at once. The women listened closely, nodding and asking questions. Some of them had never been taught these things. For many, this was the first time they felt they had control over their own success. Amma also encouraged them to work together. She helped them form small groups so they could support each other. They began sharing supplies, making plans together, and helping each other during busy market days. This created a sense of unity that made the village feel warmer and more connected. As weeks passed, Amma saw changes happening around her. One woman named Lila doubled her vegetable sales after learning how to display them better. Another woman, Kina, learned how to save her money and opened a small stall selling handmade baskets. A younger woman named Mari began selling natural soap in the nearby town because Amma helped her plan her prices and transport. The village was changing and Amma felt proud, not because she wanted recognition but because she saw real growth and happiness in others. What surprised her most was how helping others healed her as well. Every time a woman thanked her, Amma felt a small piece of her broken heart mend. Each smile, each success story, each tiny improvement reminded her that she still had something valuable to give. She had thought she had lost everything, her home, her business, her family. But here in the village she had found something she never expected, a new purpose. Amma's confidence grew slowly, like a plant climbing toward the sunlight. She no longer walked with the heaviness she once carried. Her steps were steadier. Her voice was stronger. She even began laughing more, something she had almost forgotten how to do. The other villagers noticed the change too. They saw how her presence lifted the spirits of others, and they respected her deeply. One evening, the women gathered to celebrate their recent progress. They brought food, handmade gifts, and music. They lit small lanterns around the baobab tree, and the warm glow made the night feel magical. As Amma sat among them, one of the older women stood up and thanked her for bringing such hope to the village. She said Amma had not only helped their businesses grow but had helped their hearts grow stronger too. Amma felt tears rise in her eyes, but this time they were not from pain. They were from gratitude. She realized how far she had come from the day she left her old home with a small bag and a broken heart. She had walked into the village feeling empty, but now she was surrounded by people who believed in her. Her life was no longer defined by what she had lost but by what she had found. As the celebration continued, music filled the air. Women danced in a circle, their skirts moving like colorful waves. Children laughed nearby, clapping their hands. Amma watched with a smile, her heart full. She felt at peace in a way she had never felt even in her wealthiest days. Later, as the night grew quieter, Amma and Zuri sat together under the stars. Zuri looked at her cousin and said she was proud of her. Amma shook her head softly, saying she was simply doing what she could. But Zuri insisted that it was more than that. She had turned her pain into something powerful. She had lifted others even while healing herself. Amma listened quietly, realizing Zuri's words were true. Amma started thinking about the business she once owned. She wondered how it was doing now. She wondered if her former life had changed without her. For the first time, she realized she no longer felt anger or bitterness. She felt free. Her old life no longer controlled her emotions. She had rebuilt something new, something meaningful, something that belonged only to her. Over the following months, Amma continued teaching and guiding. Some women created new products. Others expanded their stalls. And some even started training other women, passing on the knowledge Amma had shared with them. The village became known for its strong, organized women, and traders from nearby towns visited more often. Amma began writing simple notes in her old notebook, ideas, goals, dreams she had never dared to think about before. She wanted to help more villages. She wanted to teach more women. She wanted to build a future that grew from community, not from wealth or pride. People from neighboring villages visited her, asking for help. Amma welcomed them with the same kindness she had shown everyone else. Each time she spoke, she felt more sure of herself. Each time she saw someone succeed, she felt stronger. The woman who once walked away from her home feeling completely broken had become a pillar of strength for others. One afternoon, Amma sat outside watching the women pack their goods for market day. She noticed how they helped each other, lifting heavy baskets, sharing cloth to cover their items, and laughing as they worked. She felt a deep sense of pride. This was more than just business growth. This was dignity, unity, and hope. It was the kind of success money could not buy. Amma realized she no longer needed a mansion to feel secure. She no longer needed a big company to feel accomplished. She no longer needed people who did not value her. She had found her worth in a place where kindness grew like wildflowers. She stood up, feeling the warm breeze on her face. She looked at the village, at the people she had come to love, and felt something she had not felt in a long time, true happiness. Not the forced happiness she used to pretend to have, but real, peaceful happiness that lived deep inside her. Amma knew she was still rebuilding her life, but she also knew she was doing it with dignity. She had found her voice again, her balance again, her purpose again. Everything she had lost seemed small compared to everything she had gained. She smiled softly and walked toward the women, ready to help them prepare for the market. Her steps were steady, her heart strong. She was no longer the woman who had been broken on her birthday. She was Amma, a woman rising again one day at a time with grace and courage. Amma had settled into her new life in the village, waking each morning with calmness instead of fear. The past did not hurt as sharply as before. Each day she helped the women prepare their market goods, and each evening she returned home with a peaceful heart. She had built a new rhythm, a new purpose, and a new sense of self. She no longer thought much about the mansion she had left behind or the business she once poured her soul into. Those memories lived in another life, a life that no longer controlled her. But far away in town, things were not going well for Kofi. The business he had taken from Amma was beginning to fall apart. Customers left because the service was poor. The workers were unhappy, saying there was no clear leadership. Kofi tried to fix things by throwing money at every problem, but without Amma's planning and calm mind, everything became chaotic. Orders were mixed up, bills were not paid on time, and clients who had trusted Amma for years slowly drifted away. Kofi's pride would not allow him to admit that he needed help. He tried to act confident, but fear was growing in him each day. Without Amma's careful management, he began to realize how much she had done behind the scenes. Still, he kept silent and pretended everything was fine. Meanwhile, Thandi and Juma noticed the changes too. The mansion felt different. It was quiet and cold, no longer filled with the warm presence of their mother. At first, they thought life would be easier without her, but as time passed, they began to miss her gentle voice, her calm guidance, and her soft laughter. They remembered how she always made sure they had what they needed. They remembered how hard she worked for all of them. One day, the electricity in the mansion was cut because the bill had not been paid. Another week, the car that Amma had once kept in perfect condition broke down and stayed that way because Kofi's money was tied up in trying to save the failing business. The children watched everything crumble and realized the truth. They had made a terrible mistake by turning against their mother. While Amma spent her days helping women succeed, Kofi spent his days trying to stop the business from sinking. He grew tired, frustrated, and ashamed. He knew he had taken something valuable and destroyed it. He knew Amma had been the true strength behind the business. And he knew he had pushed away someone who had only ever helped him. One evening, after the business lost its biggest client, Kofi sat alone in his office. Papers were scattered everywhere. The room felt heavy with failure. For the first time he allowed himself to say the truth out loud. He needed Amma. Not for the business, not for the mansion, but because she had been the one steady light in his life, and he had blown it out with his own hands. Thandi and Juma felt the same regret in their hearts. They talked together quietly, finally admitting they had treated their mother without kindness. They remembered how she always smiled at them even when she was tired. How she stayed awake helping them study, even when she had work waiting. They remembered how she loved them unconditionally. They could no longer pretend they were happy. So they made a decision. They would go to the village. They would find Amma. And they would apologize. It took them 2 days to gather the courage. When they finally arrived in the village, they felt nervous and ashamed. Amma was sitting outside Zuri's house, weaving a small basket. Her hands moved gently, her face peaceful. She did not see them at first. When she finally looked up, her heart jumped. She froze, unsure of how to react. Thandi stood there with tears in her eyes. Juma looked down at the ground, unable to speak. Kofi stood behind them, looking older and more tired than Amma had ever seen him. For a moment, no one spoke. The wind moved softly through the trees. Amma felt her chest tighten, a mix of fear, sadness, and surprise. She had not expected to see them again. Thandi was the first to step forward. Her voice shook as she apologized. She told Amma everything: the business failing, the house falling into disrepair, the loneliness that filled the mansion. She admitted they had been wrong, deeply wrong. She begged for forgiveness, tears falling freely. Juma's voice cracked as he said he missed her. He said he had allowed himself to be influenced and he regretted it every day. He said he wished he could take back what they had done. Finally, Kofi spoke. He looked at Amma with eyes full of regret. He said he was sorry for hurting her, sorry for betraying her, sorry for taking what she had built. He said he had failed both the business and their family. He admitted he had acted out of pride and selfishness. Amma listened silently. Her heart ached as she heard their words, but she also felt a strange calmness. She had healed too much to fall back into her old pain. She looked at them not with anger but with clarity. She understood now that their choices had never been a reflection of her worth. Their mistakes had been theirs alone. She stood slowly, her hands trembling just a little. She told them she forgave them, not because what they did was small, but because forgiveness was the only way to let her heart stay free. She told them she no longer carried anger. She told them she hoped they would learn from their mistakes. But she also made one thing clear: she would not return to the mansion. She would not go back to the business. She had built a new life, one filled with peace and purpose. She had found her strength again, and she would not let anyone take it from her. Kofi lowered his head, accepting her decision. Thandi and Juma cried openly, but they understood. They knew they had lost something precious, not just the business or the mansion, but the closeness of a mother who had once given them everything. Amma reached out and hugged her children gently. She held them with warmth even after all that had happened. It was a soft, forgiving embrace, one that showed she still loved them deeply. But when she let go, she stepped back, showing that her life was now rooted somewhere else. In that moment, Amma realized something important. Her true wealth was not the mansion she lost. It was not the business she built. It was her resilience, her ability to rise after being broken, her strength to rebuild, her courage to forgive without forgetting herself. As Kofi and the children walked away slowly, Amma stood under the warm sunlight of the village. She felt the breeze on her face and the steady beating of her heart. She was at peace. She was whole again. And she knew her story from now on would be written by her own hands, not by those who once mistreated her. She turned back toward Zuri's house, ready to continue her new life, stronger than ever.